Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. It's me, Jason Jimenez Vanover with Jason's Creations Inc. I'm the CEO and founder of Jason's Creations Inc. And I also have with us Kevin Jessup. He is our COO. And today we're doing something a little bit different with what we had previously done as our LinkedIn Live audio events. This time we are actually doing it as a LinkedIn Live event. So I appreciate you bearing with us as we figure out the best way to move forward and ensure that our viewers from around the globe have an opportunity to view this later on if they should miss it during the live stream. So the point of these conversations is to discuss the core chapters from the book Certain Uncertainty and how that learning and insight can help us to better operate, manage our businesses, and really thrive as we get used to a future of certain uncertainty. And today we are discussing the third chapter, which was written by Sheree Atchison. She is the author of Demanding More, and she is one that been listed as one of the UK's most influential women in tech, and she's an international multi-award winner for her services to diversity and inclusion in industry. Her chapter today all focuses on the privilege of leadership and how we must recognize that being leaders makes us a minority compared to the overall group of people on the planet because those in leadership positions have the opportunity to influence others. And privilege exists everywhere. And it is a difficult conversation to have where you want to take a conversation around privilege and compare it to some of the adverse news stories and things that we've seen in recent years. For the purposes of this conversation, however, we're going to try to isolate it to business and really kind of speak from the heart to have an open and honest conversation about the privilege of leadership. Mr. Kevin, do you have anything else to add before we really dive in here?
No, just elephant in the room. Two white guys talking about privilege. It's the obvious thing. But what I really like about this is that the author, what's her name, Cherie. She talked about how everyone has some sort of obstacle. Some are more obvious than others. For her, she was from Sri Lanka, but grew up in Ireland. She is an anomaly, right? But there was a lot of obstacles that she had, but also a lot of benefits that she had because of those things. So everyone is different. We all have our own problems. We all have our own things that we have our own privileges that are just innate to who we are. But that doesn't mean that anyone had it easy. Some people do have it easier than others, obviously. But I just wanted to get that out of the way. And what she really got at was that in leadership, we can have a more diverse opinions, and how do we actually surround ourselves with more diverse opinions? She used the term embedded friction, and how that can lead to better decision making. I just loved that whole idea.
Definitely, definitely. So to get us started, she really starts the whole conversation by defining these phrases that we hear all the time and thinking about them. Privilege, she lists out, it's defined by Merriam-Webster as a right or immunity granted as a peculiar benefit, advantage, or favor, ultimately a benefit given to specific groups and excluded from others. When we start talking about business, especially for larger companies, you have the view of the leadership team and what are the other company members, the other team members, do they have the benefit? Do they have the privilege to bring their ideas forward to leadership?
Yeah.
And then she also mentioned that, the definition of a leader is straight up a person who has commanding authority and or influence. So when you think about it from a business view, having the privilege of leadership automatically translates into needing to recognize that you are impacting the lives of other people. In as business leaders, those impacts are, financial, time, uh, career development, career growth for our team. And at Jason's Christians Inc., we've really focused and honed in our energies on our core values to make inclusivity a core value. We want to make sure that everyone's opinions are received, heard, and considered to promote the greater good of the company. And as the founder, I will be the first person to say that that is not an easy task. There are times where I'm like, no, I started it. I know what I'm doing. But the reality is I have enjoyed the privilege of being able to get out and do these things, and maybe what I think is best might not truly be the best. And in fact, other people in my company or they may have ideas, ways that we could do things. Kevin included, some of our team members, Raji, Sarah, Danielle, all of these individuals have ideas that we as leaders have a duty to listen to and not prejudge their ideas simply because they are not a member of the leadership team.
Yeah. And it's actually a fun thing. That's the main reason you brought me on.
Yeah.
Is to help filter some of your ideas and bring some of my ideas into it so that we could grow a little bit better. So that's really is at the core of who we are as a company. So
yes, definitely. And as a person in a visionary role, that podcast we were listening to last week from EOS One, I think it was We Run on EOS. They spoke about, how as business owners and as a visionary, that sometimes it feels like we're running a book of the month club, which I found really comical with what we're doing with this podcast, because the company owner runs out, reads a book, and is like, okay, everyone, we're going to do this week, and this is what we're doing up until the point at which you find another book. And then somewhere in the middle, you have this group of people that, is trusting this leader to get them from A to B. And at times it feels like you're on some sort of woodlands track. And it's like, I'm going to throw on the backpack and say, okay, everyone, follow me. Here's what we're going to do. And in reality, I'm leading us straight into the den of a bear. Yeah. So that's really, really, that leads into the next point, self-awareness, recognizing that maybe we're not doing this exactly as we thought we should, and how we can be aware of our own privilege, my privilege, thinking, the standard thing of thinking like, well, I own it, so I must be right. That's not necessarily true. No company leader should operate like a king.
Yeah.
So, but at the same time, acknowledging privilege doesn't mean I haven't worked hard.
Yeah, I like how they put it. Acknowledging privileges does not diminish one's hard work or success.
Yes.
Yeah. You're just being honest with yourself. There are innate privileges that we all have.
Yes. There are all sorts of things that have happened. I had a moment a few weeks back where I flipped out at the grocery store over 59 cents. And I went back the next day and apologized, but I couldn't help but wonder, had I not been a white male, would that have turned out differently?
Yeah.
I may have ended up on a, channel in the depths of TikTok or Instagram for what I said and what I did.
Yeah.
But it really does take a lot to be aware of what we are doing and how we can, really grow from it.
Yeah.
So As we move forward, Kevin, what do you think about the next idea, the weight of leadership?
Well, I think you mentioned it earlier. Um, we are innately, as leaders in the company, we are a minority. And
Right.
it's a hefty role, right? It's not for everyone. The small decisions that we have to make impact other people. It impacts the direction of our company. It affects the livelihood of those that we employ. And so a lot of times when you are in those roles, your ideas kind of get skewed because we're talking to each other. We're both leaders. We make a lot of the decisions ourselves. And if we're not careful, then we get into this vacuum of two like-minded people making the same choices, getting the same ideas. There's no diversity in opinions anymore. And so, how do we start crafting things within our organization to include the opinions of others, to challenge ourselves, and just acknowledging that that is a heavy weight, because it's not easy. It's not the easy decision. It sometimes slows things down a lot because it would be so much easier if me and you just talked and made the decision and moved on. But how can we do all right, I'm skipping ahead to the next point of listening, and active listening and all that stuff, but it's all so tied in. We need to be able to give other people opportunity to provide opinions and be able to listen and understand that one decision that we make affects a whole bunch of people. It actually, I feel like I'm talking a lot, but it reminds me of a job I had early on in my career journey, where I was a business process analyst for a really large bank. And my whole job was learning, interviewing people, learning about a process, and then realizing that there's like 10 other departments involved that rely on this one thing. And I need to
Mhm.
optimize it for every single person involved so that
Definitely.
everyone is gaining efficiency together and no one's losing anything. And how do I actually do that? And it forced me to put myself in a whole bunch of different people's shoes, to look at it from their view, not mine, because I'm an analyst. My view doesn't matter. I had to force myself to be in other people's shoes to learn how they look at things. And that was my entire job. I did that for 5 years. And that really formed my way of thinking. Um, and that's something it's a skill that's just stuck with me ever since, of being able to put my own opinions and thoughts and desires, if you will, aside, and looking at situations from other people's points of views so that I can have empathy and compassion and learn from what they have to say.
I really like what you were saying about that because it makes me. I find myself questioning, like, is that the foundation for you becoming a true integrator in
Yeah,
EOS in your
it
career?
is.
Because I'm like, to have that embedded early on in your
Yeah.
career,
I was like
it
22.
oh, oh, I
Yeah.
used to have hair when I was 22.
Hey, there's a reason I wear hats. Don't worry about it.
That's I tried the hats. There was a
Yeah.
point at which the hats no longer worked.
Yeah.
I looked like I had a tail sticking out right here.
Oh no.
You know, I really find it interesting to think about the importance of considering impacts and healthy friction before we move forward
Yeah.
because as many of you know, I made some major changes to Jason's Creations Inc. last year. And my greatest source of stress at the time was concern over what would happen to my team. And we've all seen the stories in the last year where CEOs have been on LinkedIn or TikTok or Instagram crying about the layoffs that they've done. I mean, literal crying. And I think that while those instances received backlash, there's a clear distinction between doing that in one place and still drawing your salary versus what I did, which was have to have those difficult conversations and put myself in the same position.
Yeah.
And there was a period at which I wasn't receiving anything because I knew that I needed to take care of my team first and foremost. And I think that that really leads us directly into the next idea, which is thinking about affinity bias and where we want to listen and consider what's happening before we actually respond. You know, Kevin, you and I had a conversation about this when I met with clients, and you mentioned, Jason, sometimes you steamroll the conversation where I just start talking and keep going and keep going and keep going.
I feel like I said it nicer, but yeah.
Yes, it was more along the lines of be an active participant and recognize when people might be trying to speak.
Yeah.
Because I would keep it going. And to me, you know, talking is good. I love talking. Talking and writing, you have me, I'm happy. But, you know, it really is important to listen throughout the conversation and really think about what the conversation is about. Because if you open your ears and open your mind to other voices, you can really engage people. And I find that really impactful, really important, and really, quite frankly, guiding to me as a company owner and what I'm looking to accomplish.
Yeah, I really like how they put it. Genuine listening requires intentional effort to understand different perspectives. It's not something that is ingrained in us. It's something that we have to intentionally go out and do. It's not going to happen on its own. Like it needs to be something that you strive for.
Right. And in business, we start a lot of our conversations where we are discussing things and it's exciting and we have that friction. But, you know, sometimes we really do have to emphasize that, yes, if you have something to say, tell me. Don't keep it a secret. If you have an inkling as to what might be perceived on the other end of a decision, think about it. Bring it into the conversation. Having people involved isn't going to hurt a business.
Yeah.
Not involving people, not having that degree of transparency will.
Yeah.
And I really find that impactful. So Sheree also mentioned sometimes that another of the third thing that we really have to do to embrace friction is slow down. And she says, this is the hardest thing to do. Taking a minute to really assess our choices helps. Asking ourselves or asking the room why 5 times can help get to the root of the choice. So let's
5 times. That's good.
Yeah. So let's pause for a moment. Well, not pause, but I want us to let a gap of 10 seconds space. And imagine we just had a very detailed conversation about our business. And I want you to really recognize how long 10 seconds is. That's it.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
And
not a fan.
From a podcast viewer and a podcast producer view, we're like, why are they quiet? What's going on? Something has broken. But what if they're just processing? They're analyzing. You know, kind of reminds me of The Incredibles 2. I was watching that movie last night. Anyone knows me knows that I am a huge fan of Pixar. And the part where Mr. Incredible just busts out screaming, he's like, I'm processing. That's why I'm taking in the data. I'm fixing the baby. I'm doing all this.
Yeah.
That's kind of how you have to think about it. Because if you don't allow that silence to kind of set in and discuss the core issues,
Yeah.
you can miss the biggest thing. What if
Yeah.
what if you had the winning lottery ticket and you were so busy talking that you missed that you had the Powerball?
Yeah. I actually, I don't know if you know this. I don't know if we've talked about it. I mentor a group of people about once a week, and there's a group discussion time that we do. We just meet in my house, and one of the things that you're told when you're training to do this is silence is okay. Awkward silence is great. And to lean into it, you got to ask hard questions, and hard questions take time to think about. And especially, I think about my wife. She doesn't like to immediately give her opinion on something. She's going to take in the information, and it might take 24 hours, but when she speaks, it's going to be good. There's some good, well thought out nuggets of information there. Me, on the other hand, I can process pretty quick, and here's my opinion, and we can move forward. But not everyone functions like that. My ADHD brain's all over the place and constantly thinking about stuff. But other people, like my wife, she needs time to process. So I like that the silence is like that embedded friction. You got to lean into that uncomfortable nature to really get good information out of it.
Definitely. Yeah. And, I think that ties in kind of with what happened this week at the company. So this week we made we had an all hands on meeting. We got everyone together and said, hey, we are doing EOS. These are the things we are working on. These are the things that we need to be wary of. This is really what we're doing. And one of the things that became evident is, despite that conversation and despite asking for feedback or opinions in it, messages started rolling in right after.
Oh yeah.
Like, does this mean we're not going to have a job? Does this mean we're going to have this? What does this mean for X, Y, and Z? What does this mean for my career? And you really
valid questions.
Yes. And these are things that, I had to ask last year.
Yeah.
Where it was, okay, how do we scale? How do we move? Mm-hmm. How do we evolve? How do we leverage new tools and technologies to be more efficient? And I think that really is an impactful value, where you have to think about, sometimes it takes people time to respond. And much like one of the things I was told years ago is, if you get an email from someone and it makes you angry, type the reply, but don't send it.
Yeah, don't do that.
don't send it.
Yeah.
Because if you send it, you've set the ball rolling for whatever it is you had to say. Yeah. Meanwhile, if you give it even a little bit of time, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, go downstairs, walk around your house, maybe clean out your pantry, who knows? You have a chance to really think and absorb that material. And for me, when that happens, I have to get away from the computer. Yeah. I have to get away from the computer. I have to go downstairs. If I'm working at home, I'll go downstairs, walk around the house. Mm-hmm. If I'm working downtown, I will go outside and go sit outside on the park bench across the street from our office for about 5 or 10 minutes, provided that it's not pollinating season, because the last time I did that, there were a lot of bees, and I am allergic to bees.
Yeah.
And then in other times, I see it and I'm like, oh, this is, I need to respond to this. But if you respond too quickly, you're liable to misunderstand.
Yeah.
And you cannot convey true tone in a short message. When we're writing content, when you're creating a blog post or a social media post, your tone is fairly simple. You want to be objective, you want to be helpful. But when you are discussing things that impact someone's livelihood, such as what is going to happen with the future of your job, a simple phrase of, oh, don't worry about it, we still need you, isn't going to really convey a tone. It comes up as, don't worry about it, we still need you.
Yeah.
And especially when you have conversations around that, the tone gets lost. Shorter
Yeah.
text tone is hard to convey because in English, there's only a few things you can do to convey tone. And one of those is, in the recent years has become the emoji, but emojis can quickly become overutilized.
Yeah.
If someone sends you LOL or the grinning emoji and you think that perhaps it's one of those forced grins, it's
Yeah.
even worse than that.
For the people listening, please don't use emojis in sarcasm. That's so confusing.
Yes.
Sarcastic emojis? Come on.
This would be the perfect place to have like 100 pop up right here. I really enjoy doing this. Part of the reason we created this video or this series was to, one, apply what I've learned in this book, and two, really understand how we can use it to grow. I think that our next thing that was in here was she talked a bit about equitable leadership for the future. Leadership must be diverse, equitable. We have to fairly distribute those growth opportunities. And at Jason's Creations Inc., we are preparing to unveil a new content manager position and training to help our team members grow and thrive as we go forward. You have to use that data to understand how different groups can be supported. And you have to be open to the fact that maybe what I think is going to look right in our SOP may not necessarily need to be the best for everyone. And I've been getting feedback from our team all week.
Yeah.
So do you have anything on those thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, it just reminded me of our meeting you talked about that we had with the whole company on Monday. And if we weren't clear in that meeting, or maybe we didn't have enough time for people to process and ask questions in that meeting, but it would be very easy for some of the employees to question their future and the livelihood that they would have in employment and all that. But as the questions came in, we were able to address certain things about, no, there's opportunity. These aren't things that like your job isn't going away. Your job might shift a bit, but we have to embrace those things. As technology changes, we have to change. We need to think about the future. We need to be ahead of the curve if we're going to survive. And that doesn't just apply to us, that applies to everybody. And so it's not just, we're not just talking about that. I'm actually meeting with every single employee throughout the week to get to know them, to get to know who they are. I mean, I've only been employed at JCI for a month and a half. I haven't had time to get to know everybody. And I need to make sure that we have the right people in the right seats. And that's the only way that they're going to be fulfilled by their job, that they're going to be happy. They're going to want to show up to work and do a really good job. If they're in the wrong seat, maybe they're great at their job, but they don't enjoy it. So I need to know how they think. What do they enjoy? What do they not enjoy? What are they good at? What are they not good at? And make sure that they're in those seats. And that only happens if we as leaders can take the time to listen and to learn from people. So that's one of those things that equitable leadership for the future, the people that we have right now are our core group. We've been working with some of them for a long time, and there's plenty of opportunities. They may be copywriters right now, but that doesn't mean that they couldn't function better and be more efficient in maybe a more managerial role. Maybe that doesn't make sense. Maybe they're just a really good writer. Maybe they could be a good editor as well. It's those things like that. Just because you're a good writer doesn't mean you be a good manager of writers. Like, we need to learn those things. So that's the goal. That's the next step.
Definitely. And, it kind of harkens back to that age old, I meant to say old adage.
Yeah.
If you love what you do, that saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah.
Same idea. We really want to make sure that everyone is happy. And we have faced growing pains where we looked at intentionally putting someone into the wrong seat in order to support growth, and
Yeah.
it was a consideration I had for about 3 days, and I really thought it over, and I was like, I'm going to ruin this person's life if we do this. So
Yeah.
it wasn't necessarily, it did mean that we had another role we had to fill that was missing, but we have to have those conversations. We have to recognize that I have the privilege of deciding whether this person is happy or not based on what type of job I give them.
Yeah.
And by manifesting that privilege and recognizing that, the privilege of leadership will always be here. I will always be the face of the company. Kevin will always be our COO, and in the future, we will always be in these positions to have influence and commanding authority over other people. But that does not mean I wish to lord over them. That does not mean we're going to rule as kings, but rather it means that we have to recognize that our actions and our abilities directly impact them. And when we recognize our own privilege, I really want to quote this.
Yeah.
That requires that we, as leaders, recognize our own privilege and how it affects our ways of thinking, so that when we finish doing this work, whatever it may be, we can honestly say we have left things better than we found them. And that's the whole goal.
Yep. That's good.
If we can leave marketing better than I found it, if I can help my team be better than when we first met, if we can do something to be positive in the world, it'll all have been worth it.
Absolutely. That's actually a great segue, because I know we're a little over on our time right now. But next week we get to talk about leading from the future and not the past. The past is great to learn from, but we have to think about the future, how decisions that we make impact everything, playing to your strengths, seeing areas of improvement and constant improvement being a part of who we are. It's going to be a great conversation. And I hope that everyone listening now, go ahead and find the link to register for next week's. Jason, do you have anything to add for closing remarks?
Not yet. We will be making the event for next week today, later this afternoon. We will be inviting people. If you know someone that you might find interested in this conversation, share the link. We are actively looking for additional guest speakers in the future.
Wow.
Unlike a LinkedIn audio event, we do have to get this planned in advance, as we would be recording it in advance rather than going live. So if there's someone you know that would be interested, get in touch with myself. You can reach me at Jason at Jasons with an S -creations with an S tx.com, or you can reach Kevin at Jasons with an S -creations with an S tx.com.
You can also DM us on LinkedIn. We're here.
Yeah.
So just find us there. That might be easier.
or comment on this very event. I don't know why.
If you want to make it official, you can email us, but you can also just DM us.
Yes, and we are on LinkedIn. Oh gosh, I use LinkedIn. I think I might use LinkedIn more than I use my own phone.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, I appreciate you spending this Wednesday afternoon with us. I hope you have a fantastic rest of the day. Get ready for the weekend. Enjoy yourself, and take a few moments to think about what type of privileges you might have enjoyed and how you can use that knowledge to build a better future. Have a good one.
Bye.